Ukraine winter. Putin fails. Civilians under attack. Facts versus propaganda. Russian strikes on Odessa and Kharkiv. Ukraine clearing Kupyansk. And Russian army's failures on January 26-27, 2026. Real situation on the front and in the rear. Hello there, I'm Elena. Welcome to my channel Enough of Propaganda. I'm a former economist and former associate professor at several universities. And here I analyze war, power, and propaganda using facts, verified sources, and careful research. My writing and analysis on Quora received over 5.7 million views. So in January, Russia was keep hitting civilians. This is Kyiv, for example, on January 20th and so on. So Putin can't win on the front lines. As I told you before, and we will talk about front lines a little bit more today. But this is how Kyiv looks like. This is what 16th of January, for example. Putin deliberately is hitting infrastructure, not by not, basically, going after whole chains of places to be able to put people into situations like this. Last winter I showed you similar stuff from Russia, which actually happened because Russian negligence. Russian cities wasn't even bombed. And some of them we will see today. Also, hasn't been bombed or anything like that. Here's Russian losses on January 27th, which is today. 1,235,880 people. 820 in a day. Today I mostly will talk about January 26th, 27th, couple days, what is happening and how things are going. And this is the insider for the January 26th. Basically, several directions we will talk about just now. I'll show you on a bigger map. This is most accurate map by Deep State. People having laughed at even bad guys who is doing like bets on the Ukrainian front for their games and taking bets on people's lives. They using Deep State map because this is most accurate one. So on January 26, 2026, we will talk about Kharkiv front. Russian forces are attacking from south of Vovchansk and along the bank of Seversky Donets River. On the Kupyansk front, which is around here, Ukraine is continuing clearing the center of Kupyansk of Russian troops. On the Liman front, the situation is deteriorating at the Ukrainian-held bridgehead around Liman. Going further south to Kostyantynivka front, fighting is expanding in the southern and southeastern outskirts of Kostyantynivka. Even Russian Z-bloggers and war correspondents, for example, war correspondent Romanov notes that on some sections the red lines on Russian HQ maps differ from the real front line by 8 to 10 kilometers. So Russian military commanders include Gerasimov, as we could see later, lying all the time, and even Z-bloggers complaining about it. In Kyiv, according to the mayor, one civilian was killed and 4 others were injured. And heat and water supply outages were reported in Kyiv's left bank part. And approximately 6,000 homes in Ukrainian capital were left without heat in winter. And the temperature there could be -11, -15, and so on. More than 800,000 people in Kyiv were without power. This is interesting information for foreigners who's stupid enough to join Russian army. This is done by I Want to Live project. Based on collected data, it concluded that 42% of mercenaries, foreigners, died within the first 4 months of service in the Russian army. Good luck to them! For the first time during the war, the Kyiv Pechersk Lavra was damaged by a Russian air raid, which is very famous religious site, which is very special for Ukrainians and for Russians, Orthodox Christians. On top of everything, Russia has launched a large-scale program to recruit students from the universities to the unmanned aerial vehicle forces. In fact, from Moscow School of Economics, basically, which university lied to the students that they only will serve for 1 year and they will be just operating drones and this and that. for students who failed their exams. So they wouldn't be kicked out of university, but they will, if they go on the front and serve for a year, then their place in the university will be preserved, and they will have some special privileges and this and that. In fact, they made it up. Students will sign typical contract as everybody else, and they will stick there until the end of the war and most likely die very quickly. So teachers now will take big bribes not to fail students, because otherwise they will go to the front anyways, because Russian men supposed to go to the army unless they go into university, for example, and only after they graduate from university they will go to the army. It's mandatory. So if people fail in the university and get kicked out, then if they certain age, they will be recruited and drafted into the army. If you find this video useful, please like, subscribe and share. Let's make truth accessible for everyone. January 27th, 2026. This is current time news. Odessa, Ukraine. The Russian army attacked Odessa with Shahed drones. 3 people were killed and 35 injured. Several high-rise buildings, a church and an energy facility were damaged. Overnight, Russia launched around 50 strike drones at Odessa. Some hit residential buildings, causing several floors of one building to collapse. The head of Odessa Defense Council, Alexander Vikul, promised to assistance with relocations to those affected. This is a result of Russian strike on Odessa. This is Kharkiv, Ukraine. Photo is from the previous day, but on 27th also the Russian army attacked with combination of Shahed drones and rocket artillery. 2 people were injured, residential buildings, a lyceum and 16 high-rises were damaged. 80% of the city, homes and infrastructure were left without power. Electric transport stopped and the metro operated intermittently. City energy workers partially restored electricity, but 40% of the city remains without power. Despite the destruction of civilian objects, the Russian army claimed that strikes targeted locations used by Ukrainian forces, which is not true. By morning, damaged high-rises and infrastructure were visibly destroyed, and residents reported ongoing electricity problems. First moments after Russian drone strike on Ukrainian passenger train, Russia deliberately terrorized Ukrainian civilians. You can see full video yourself. And this is how Ukrainian life looks like right now. People living, people cooking food, surviving without electricity, without heat, performing operations, sitting in metro. Everybody, we have to stop this terror. Please help Ukraine. While Ukrainian forces continue to pressure Putin towards negotiations, a substation in Luhansk and an air defense position near Belgorod were hit. But Russia, as you can see, in turn striking Odessa and Kharkiv. In both cities, residential buildings were damaged and civilians were injured. And Kharkiv, basically a city where many people, including my friends, were speaking Russian. Some of my friends still do, because that's their language. Despite knowing both languages and despite standing for Ukraine and being Ukrainians, it's their language. And yet, Russia, who came to defend Russian language and Russian-speaking people, working Kharkiv and bombing Kharkiv since the beginning of full-scale invasion every day. In first days, they used, and later they continue using shrapnel and so on, all that, which was supposed to be used only on the battlefield, and it's banned from, it's a war crime to use it against civilians in the city. Yet, no problem, they continue doing so. Kupyansk. The Russian Ministry of Defense and Vladimir Putin once again claimed that the alleged capture of the outskirts of Kupyansk, this place, Kupyansk-Uzlovaya, in Kharkiv region. These claims are false. This video is showing Ukrainians cleaning up buildings from the Russians, arresting them in Kupyansk. And the Ukrainian General Staff reported that Russian attacks on Kupyansk front were repelled. This was just false as Putin's claims of capturing Kupyansk itself in the first place. Shortly after Putin's statement, Vladimir Zelensky, as you remember, personally arrived in Kupyansk, publicly disproving Moscow's statements. Despite this, Putin continues to claim that city is under Russian control, but has not visited Kupyansk yet. I wonder why not. I guess he doesn't want to be in place of these Russian people who just getting arrested by Ukrainians. Here they are. Putin, welcome to be on their place if he likes. But no, he did not visited Kupyansk. Russian armed forces advance rates. This graph showing advance rates by weekly by square kilometers. So this is, for example, from 19th to 25th of January, and so on, 2026, and this is 2025. The publication agency, using the deep state map, which we just saw, calculated that from January 1st to 25th, 2026, Russian forces captured only 152 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory. And weekly advance rates fell to the lowest since March 2025. The resource Okagora plus News and Analytics estimated that Russian forces advanced 27 square kilometers per week, or 4 square kilometers per day, compared to about 10 square kilometers per day the week before. Meanwhile, Russian Valery Gerasimov claimed that Russian forces captured over 500 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory and 17 settlements since the start of the year. Statements that do not match reality. Weapons and ammunition. France opposes Ukraine purchasing British Storm Shadow missiles with European Union credit funds, insisting the money should support European defense industry. Germany can no longer supply Ukraine with Patriot SAMs and missiles, having already provided more than one-third of its stockpile. According to Russia's 2025 State Defense Order, the Russian defense industry was to supply 2,670,000 mortar rounds and 2,610,000 artillery shells of various calibers. But first of all, Russia lies all the time, but second of all, we have to remember, and Europe and the United States has to support Ukraine more. Let's talk about Russian cities. For example, Murmansk and Severomorsk. This is Murmansk. People in Murmansk, nobody bombed Murmansk. But people, according to this post, for example, fourth day without electricity and heat in dark and cold apartment buildings. Why did this happen? It just Putin's stability came. Instead of fixing a rotten Soviet infrastructure, all the money went to the war. Putin's war in Ukraine. So their communications in some of these cities haven't been fixed since 1966. And parts of Murmansk as well as Severomorsk remain without power and heat due to failure on power lines. A state of emergency has been declared, and repair work continues around the clock, according to the Russians. 5 power lines towers collapsed on January 23rd due to icing. Full restoration of electricity and heating will take at least a week. Outages are causing disruption to water supply, heating, and school lessons. Private businesses and population support centers are assisting residents. The investigative committee opened a criminal case against energy workers for negligence. Gee, I wonder whose fault is that? Anybody who could fix anything were sent by Putin to war, ran away from Russia because they didn't want to get drafted, and Russians, being a racist, beating up migrants and trying to get rid of migrants, trying to get rid of foreign workers who could have doing this fixing. No, Russians doesn't like blacks, and black in Russia is anybody who isn't Russian. In conclusion, despite of belief some stupid foreigners who still wasting time of the Ukrainian President Zelensky and everybody else's, trying to make a bloodthirsty tiger a vegetarian and war criminal Putin who doesn't want peace, which I just proved to you. Russia does not want peace. It continues to strike Ukrainian infrastructure, deliberately destroying it. There are no significant success for Putin's army on the front. Statements by officials constantly contradict the real situation on the front line, as Russian war correspondents, Z-Patriots, frequently report and whine about. Meanwhile, Trump continues to distract the world from Ukraine, giving Putin yet another chance to achieve the progress at the cost of monstrous losses. Disastrous losses. At the same time, he diverts Americans' attention from the problems he created for them and the Epstein files, which were supposed to have been fully released over a month ago. And yet Ukrainians don't give up. Light, dark, light again. Life, death, life again. Sky, ground, sky. Day, night, day again. And will be another day. And Ukrainians are dancing on the streets. Despite cold, they're trying to get warmer that way. Despite Russian attacks. They're cleaning up their cities like people in Kharkiv. Every time after the attack, they're cleaning their city and making their life normal again, despite Putin's attempt to terrorize them and make them afraid. Ukrainians are not afraid. This is the update. This is where we are right now. Thank you for your attention. Continue supporting Ukraine, learn the truth, and stay informed.